some of the companies started to have internal competitions and leaderboards.
I heard it's way beyond only software engineering teams. Yet software engineers got measured token to token.
With how fast things changing in this world, it may be too late. I can do everything, but just with less resources, then people start to worry about their jobs.
So if AI can fill in this position, instead of I have to hire a recruiter and wait for 6 months for this to happen.
If something is becoming cheaper and become more abundant, then the demand for it is even more. With more AI, we need less people and there are layoffs happening.
Hi everyone, welcome to season 2 of Beyond the Algorithms. I'm Frost.
Hi, I'm Jun. In this new season, 2026, we want to start the season with talking about the hottest topic in town, AI adoptions. There's just a lot of news articles about AI adoptions, and some of the recent ones that caught our attention is some of the companies started to have internal competitions and leaderboards on like who uses the most of the tokens, as if that is a way to sort of show that AI is being adopted. In this particular context, it's primarily in software engineering and AI code generation. But I think the impact is way beyond just software engineering. So I'm curious, Frost, do you have any first reactions in here in the news?
I heard it's way beyond only software engineering teams. Yet software engineers got measured token to token. Just like how 20 years ago we laughed at people who got measured by how many lines of code they wrote. Now we are back to that basic again. I think a lot of executives are very eager to get their employees to use more AI. So they clock in by number of tokens, they clock in by how many sessions people do, or even just how much money they burn. The goal of adopting AI is not to make the company just spend more money on AI. That should be the cost and not the final goal. So what should be the companies measure against when they actually want to win in this AI race right now?
I sort of feel a little bit, at least a little bit of empathy for whoever started this, if we call it movement. I don't think it's going to stay that long, is because at this stage, I think a lot of people see the value of using AI for almost whatever you do. But the inertia of, people have worked in the industry for a long period of time. There is an existing way of working. And how do we manage the change or transition of adopting AI is really difficult. I agree 100% that we need to measure the things that matter instead of number of lines of code or the number of tokens that you use or number of sessions, or even what's the percentage of our total code base is generated by AI versus human. I think they're a better measure, but with how fast things changing in this world, it may be too late if we only measure the output, and then the feedback loop is probably too long, is my assumption on like why some people decided to sort of measure input for lack of a better alternative. But I'm sure there is a better way. And then we're not just limiting to code generation, because I think in some of the other functional areas, AI could potentially be even more bigger impact. Frost, any thoughts on like what are the realistic metrics that we can start to improve that is not too much of a lagging indicator? Because I feel like those sometimes is the feedback loop is too long, and then once we realize it's not working, it's really hard to sort of see what we can do to actually make it happen. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so let's look at two directions, right? One is if you were the CMO, how do you want to measure against to get your employees use more AI? And on the other side, if you were a marketer and all you heard from the order is you should use more AI, how do you showcase you are adopting more AI to make your leadership feel you are really transforming the company into a better space in the modern age? I have a few ideas. One is speed, right? That's what we think it is a lot better, while the ROI is not getting sacrificed. So if you can do everything faster with the same output, then that's a success. Two is with the same speed, your ROI increased, then that's also good using AI. Or three, you can maintain the same speed and the same ROI, and then you can have fewer people working on the project. Then that's also a success for AI.
Point that they were making is probably why people are having a hard time seeing AI adoption. And this is getting personal, right? And I agree with the first 2 points. Like if I have two constraints, right? Speed and ROI, and if you improve one of them, holding the other constant is obviously improving. So one or the other two is fine. But if you're talking about I can do everything, but just with less resources, then people start to worry about their jobs. It's just a harder job market, especially for knowledge workers, white collars in the past few years. And at least the news headline is AI related. I'm not fully convinced, at least it's a mixed bag for me. But that's why if you have a top-down sort of mandate saying like everyone should be using more AI, the obvious concern from people is like, if I use more AI, then if I somehow are able to become more effective in doing the same thing using less resources in terms of the number of people, then eventually I'm working myself out of a job. Is that a valid concern?
In my entire career, my life goal is always try to automate myself out of my job. But let's zoom out. If you're the CMO, what you really truly care is I want to spend the same amount of money and get more outcome by using whatever technology or whatever tools I could implement, right? So that's the initial goal they want. And they now see AI as a tool that potentially can reach that goal. And instead of, I don't believe people's goal is they want to just have fewer people on the team, but more like what I heard more in the market is, wow, it already took me a long time to find this really talented marketer. Like how long would it take for me to find someone that to specifically fill in to be, for example, analytical, technical person? So if AI can fill in this position, instead of I have to hire a recruiter and wait for 6 months for this to happen. That's what the leadership wants, right? Their goal is actually not to just chop people off. However, to your point, what people's worries are, what if now it has been filled with AI and this role would never be backfilled by any human? Then that's a concern.
I think it's a valid concern from that perspective. But the reality, as I agree with you, is like talent is always in shortage. And if we have the people here and knowing the institutional knowledge, the culture and everything, there is really not a lot of incentive for leadership to actually feel now we can do the same with AI, so we need less people. If any business is doing all right, the idea is always like use existing talent to have them do more. And there is something that's a theory being quoted more recently, more often, something called the Jevons paradox. I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it correctly, but the Jevons paradox basically says if something is becoming cheaper and become more abundant, then the demand for it is even more. It originally come from like maybe, I forgot the original reference, is like maybe energy cost. When we can provide energies at lower cost, then the demand for it is even order of magnitude more. As a result, we need even more of those energy. I think right now it's happening in white collar productivity. Like now we can, write a marketing copy a lot faster than before. And we can write code a lot faster than before. We can automate and sending millions of emails automatically than what it was before. As a result, we don't end up with less emails, less copies being written, less code being written. It's like we collectively need magnitude of more of those because there is a reason why those are in demand in the first place. So as a result, I think we actually need more, if not less, but it may be more of a new way of doing it. And that is, from my perspective, the reason why I have a little bit of empathy for, the leaderboard of who used the most token kind of thing is collectively as like a new way of working in not even like organizations, but like society. We know that is the direction we want to go, but we don't really know how to be there, and people coming up with more creative ways of at least hinting like that is the direction we want you to go. I don't think it'll stay, but I'm not sure if it backfired. I mean, people have different incentives. I think Jensen Huang was saying like if you have a $500,000 worth of super senior engineer, then you should be burning at least close to the salary level of tokens. He's trying to sell more GPUs from that statement, I presume. But there is some merit. I think people want to see us using the technology that is made available to us more so that we can do more things better. I don't necessarily feel that, again, the news headline will say, with more AI, we need less people and there are layoffs happening. But I honestly feel some of those are just excuses for either the overhiring in the past or maybe in some cases it's legitimate like rebalancing, because you probably need less of one profile of people and you need more of another profile of people that may have some degree of truth there, but it's not like universally 100%.
Absolutely. I also want to add, it's just like when you hire marketing managers, they have to deploy at least a number of budget related to their salary, right? You don't hire someone who makes 100K and only deploy 50K in marketing budget. That'll be ridiculous. However, the hidden or like known rule is they have to be able to deploy all this budget with a certain return on investment goal. And I think for AI tokens, yeah, it makes sense. If I hire an engineer, they should burn like half of their salary in tokens. But what is the ROI goal we have here? And I think that's one of the very interesting things for the engineering leaders or leaders in different organizations to figure out, because not every organization can have an easy number, just like in a marketing org. What is your return on spending? What's your return on investment? And I also really agree on this. I think Sam Altman has a very, very good comment. He called all these layoffs AI washing, which means you have all the reasons to lay people off. However, it's cooler to say the reason you are laying people off is because you already built agents to replace them.
Yeah, I very much agree. I love the AI washing framing. Yeah, it's just a better excuse. It's a better excuse for something that may have been accumulating for years. It's a separate topic probably for another episode. But I would say, yes, in marketing, you have, return on ad spend, ROAS. That's a good measure, but it's not that easily measurable. And even if we stick to those measures, it's not that black and white in terms of, whether you're truly having successes in the campaigns. The details are probably require more of an investigation. And these are things maybe today that AI can help with. And so like if we say marketing as a function, specifically like buying ads, if we narrow it down, like buying advertising, using ads dollars to buy advertisement is like what we're focusing on. It is still not that straightforward to say like how we can use AI to actually, with the same speed, improve the ROI or ROAS, or control the ROAS, improve the speed, or do the same with less. And then in other areas, it may be even harder. And for like the news article that we're talking about, like the software engineering side, it is infamously difficult to actually quantitatively measure whether a given developer who is writing code, whether that person is good or not. Like, and almost by definition, engineers are very good at creating or fitting whatever numbers you measure them against. So you get what you measure. If you want number of lines of code, you will get it. If you now want to measure people on number of tokens, there's so many ways we can weight token on, and we don't even have to get started on that. So what's the middle ground?
Yeah, I think one thing is if people can define the goals very well, number one, it's easier to measure. Number two is I really feel people feel a lot safer that their job is not getting replaced. The reason people feel scared is they don't know what's the goal and what should be achieved. Let me put this as an example. If the goal is we want to push out all these marketing campaigns as soon as possible, now we don't have this data analyst. In the past, what you do is you hire an agency or a vendor to fill in the vacuum. And now you potentially use some AI tools to fill the vacuum. If the goal is just we want to push it out, but eventually we still want a business intelligence person who do more than analysis, who actually help with strategies and everything. If that was communicated, I don't think anyone will be scared. And if truthfully you do want to replace all this with this AI tool, you potentially actually need to hire more people to operate these tools. Then if that is also communicated, then people also understand what really is going to be expected. But just asking people saying, hey, let's do more AI. And I think that's actually where all these anxieties are coming from.
Yeah, I know. There have been, I don't know, stories told that may not necessarily even help the cause. And now it's oftenly quoted story is like, you don't have to, be good at what you do to worry about AI taking over your jobs. You just need to be better at AI than the person next to you, so that when the layoff comes, you're the person who is perceived to be more productive. I think it's a good joke. It's probably carries some sense of truth, but I think we're all like in this transformation together. It's not about whether you can be temporarily like good at something than someone else to sort of protect your job or anything. Is like it's not an end game, but like there is a end of the wave. It's always like change is the only constant, but there is going to be near the end of this rapid changing wave. Now, like every other day, there is something new, and we need to fundamentally rebuild all the toolboxes and all the environmental setups and the tool chains, and maybe switching a subscription or anything. Now things are happening so fast that we don't really know like where do we stabilize. I'm very sure in a unknown period of time, hopefully, quarters and short number of years, will stabilize into the new norm. And now is where the opportunities are. In this period of time, almost anyone who is going through this transition is going to be the person who benefits a lot once we stabilize. Now we know the tools and how do we use the tools and how the new way of working. I often sort of thought about, some of the previous major transitions, and from horse carriages to internal combustion engine is one thing that often comes to mind. It's like we probably need less people whose job is feeding the horses, but we need a lot more people whose job is to, beyond just the internal combustion engine itself or building cars, but like paving the roads. We need a fundamentally different infrastructure. So in that regard, I stay with my comment on like we actually need more of this new thing that is now making things more efficient and scalable and productive. But there are not even rebalancing, but like reskilling, which is a whole other topic for another day. Like how do people feel comfortable from the old way of doing things to maybe a newer way of doing things? In software engineering, it's a little bit more straightforward. Basically, your output is the same and AI can already do that output, and we just need to learn how to better use the AI. But in many other functions, it may not be that straightforward, but the idea is the same. We just need to push people. There will be a transition, whether you like it or not, that there will be a new way of working things with a better generation of technology. With that, whatever that we were doing in the past, we just need more. And so the question is, how do we get there without losing people along the way, and also hopefully faster? Because the more clarity that we have right now, I think everyone is in anxiety. We don't really know how, even like whether some of the job titles will be there. The faster we can get to the new place, the faster that everyone can sort of react to it in a little bit more calmer fashion, even including students in universities and then the majors. There's just a lot of anxiety right now.
Yeah, again, I think anxiety comes from lack of clarity, exactly what you're saying, right? Just saying more tokens, more adoption, it's not really a clear communication. At the end, we just want better results and faster results. And it should be hopefully getting people a way to learn AI and use it in the right way. I think there's also the education part to retrain your employees to make them understand how it could be used. And eventually, people have to feel safe. And I actually do believe a lot of jobs will be eliminated. It's not necessarily a bad thing because you just transform to a different sort of jobs. I learned how to write code in C and C++, and have not seen this profession existing in Silicon Valley for a really long time of C++ engineers in most of the companies. And that is okay. We're still talking now. We're still doing stuff in tech. So I feel when you see new technology, the fear is real, but at the same time, it's also an opportunity to make yourself a lot more effective.
That's a great example, learning in C and C++, and then no longer. I removed the C++ from my resume very long time ago for almost exactly the same reason, and everyone is evolving, and that's partly the fun of it. So like to reframe the change is only constant. I think learning is the only form that'll help you adapt to the very rapidly changing world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, Jun, if you have like advice for people now, they are so confused by their instruction, please use more AI. How do they achieve that? And how do they feel more calm for the upcoming worries of AI may replace them?
This is probably a little bit from an engineering perspective, but I'm trying to say a little bit broader. I think I wrote a little bit about it even a year ago. Title of software engineer or even developer is just probably not the most accurate way of description. Is more like builders, right? People who make things happen, or makers, builders.
I like that.
So if your job function is like making things out of the raw materials, then the best way of adapting is try to learn the new tools by making. So like a lot of people asking me about what book to read, what newsletter to subscribe, or what YouTube video to watch. I was like, go do all that, and then like by the time it become an advice, it's already too late. Like I don't really much books anymore, at least in technology side. By the time anything become a book, it's already too late. On the other hand, I think just learning by doing is probably the one area that will always hopefully stay true. So like I know many builders who like build things on the side, not necessarily in the sense that, you want to make another product and sell it or anything like that, but like the best form of learning is by just doing along the way. And I think that's probably generally true for all the functions, not just engineering or developers.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you were talking to the founders or the leadership who are giving employees this instruction of using more AI, because their goal is they don't want their organization or their companies to fall behind when the tech world is accelerating, right? So it all comes from like good intentions. What advice do you give them to give employees a more, I would say, clarity? So number one, people can really execute adopting more AI. Two, people can actually feel calm. And only when people are calm, they can actually do the work in the right way.
Yeah, more communication to the leaders is more communication, clearer communications on the intention and the way. If I really want to wear the hat of like someone who made that decision of building a leaderboard and how do we use more tokens, my interpretation is it is actually a different way of working if you can like legitimately, like without wasting, legitimately using more tokens. It reflected a different way of working. So the more you can, get into the next level, if you have like multi-agent, multi-sub-agent, multi-sessions, and then like you're orchestrating a lot of agents to work on your behalf as you're taking a coffee break, it is a fundamentally different way of maybe the 1.0 version of AI assisted code writing, which is you describe something in the ChatGPT window and then you get like a bunch of code that you can copy paste, or even the earlier version of Cursor where you can tap complete. It is like using AI for building things has transformed multiple times in the past maybe 2-3 years. So the leaders are like incentivizing using more token as a way to say, if you can somehow use this many token legitimately, that shows to me that you learned a new way of working. You have made very far in the AI transformation journey. So, but I don't think I don't think many people are like explicitly saying that. Some of them is probably just because there's way too much chaos. But I'm using this as an example to say, like, if you communicate in the rationale behind it, people will feel a lot calmer and also feel it's less, I don't know, measuring the wrong thing, and also like not hack the system, because again, like, you get what you measure. If you want people to use token, there are many ways to use token, and for individuals, try to see the rationale behind it.
Yeah, I also want to just add on one thing is I feel education is very important. Actually, I think it actually makes a lot of sense for the leadership to create seminars, to have experts to educate their employees. And also, they themselves can start using AI so other people can copy how they do that as well. Because, like you said, a lot of the exact goal in terms of the numbers is hard to communicate. And it differs from team to team, organization to organizations. So actually coming up with a plan and just like tell people exactly how they do it is a lot better than like a fake idea of let's be more AI driven, which is just very difficult to execute on.
Each organization, each subculture has their own, set of limitations and then tools and authorized ways of working. So internal communications, seminars, training sessions, ambassadors who share what they do is definitely something that'll go a long way. And I've seen quite a few successes in different places as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So if there's like one takeaway you want people to remember from this episode, Jun, what would you say?
Keep learning and adapting. How about you?
That's great. I always just feel whenever you see there's something scary, usually it's the biggest opportunity in your career. And I've seen it happening so many times, only within my short 15 years of careers. But if you look even farther, like back then, that's always how the biggest opportunities happen to everybody.
Yeah, I agree. It's like there's a whole Chinese saying around crisis is danger and opportunity. That's where we are right now.
Absolutely. I think we'll talk more about this adoption and maybe very soon about specific skill set and plans that people should be looking at. Today, thank you so much for tuning in.
Great. We'll wrap it up and thank you for listening.